Hey everyone, welcome back to Frankie's Forest. I hope you all are having an incredible day so far. Before I get started, if you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Frankie. I am the host of this channel, Frankie's Forest, and here we talk all about plants and also other aspects of nature. In today's video, we'll be doing a house plant tour. I haven't done one of these in such a long time. I'm so excited to share with you guys the new plants I've gotten. Let's get started. Also, just one more thing I'm going to say before we get started is that if I don't remember the exact names offhand as I'm doing the tour, I will write them on the screen for you to see. The first plant in my collection is a rather large Crasula Ovata. Even though you may not believe me, yes, this plant was bought very small and over time developed this thick stem, almost like a tree. Look how incredible that is. One cool thing I love about this succulent is that the leaves are almost like a tube, and at the end of them there's a little hole, a little indent at each one of them. Look how cute that is. My next plant is an African violet that's looking a bit sandy. It actually just got done blooming and I just cut the dead flower stems off. However, already there are new ones coming out. Look at that. And I actually have a picture of when it was in full bloom right up there. I have my African violet in a self-watering pot, as you can see the little hole down here. So I pour water in here, and it stimulates the roots to grow down. Also, African violets don't like their leaves to be touched by water. Their leaves are very sensitive. If you look closely, they have a lot of little hairs on them. And if disturbed, that leaf might actually start to die. My next plant is actually an arrangement of a couple different plants. The first plant in this arrangement is a couple of spider plants. And if you take good enough care of them, they'll even start to produce babies off of these stems. And before you know it, you got a whole bunch of baby spider plants to deal with. The next plant in here, I'm not quite sure what it is. Closest guess can be a Dieffenbachia. It almost resembles pothos, but the leaves are much too thin to be pothos, so I know it's not that. And it doesn't bind, because look at the stem. Next I have two crotons. They went through a bit of a mysterious death phase. However, they're starting to sprout at the top, and the leaves look very fresh and healthy. The last plant in this arrangement is an ivy. It's not doing too excellent, it's not really vining that much with the other plants in this arrangement. I worry that the reason that these other plants aren't growing as much is because these spider plants are just taking all of the nutrients from the soil from them. Next up, we have two plants residing in this one pot. The first one is a Hoya Australis. I do know that species. The plants that share the pot with this pothos are two Dieffenbachias that I actually started in waterculture, and a good friend gave them to me. My first orchid table of a few consists of one Phalaenopsis orchid that I recently repotted into a terracotta pot, and actually put it in a plastic pot first, because I find a lot of times when I plant orchids directly into a terracotta pot, their roots actually stick to the sides of the pot, and when repotting, a lot of them can break. Next I have a Dendrobium. I believe it's a Dendrobium Nobly, I'm not quite sure. If you didn't know how Dendrobiums bloom, they actually grow from canes, and one cane will produce anywhere from 1 to 3 flower spikes. And you can see that here. Here are 3 deceased flower spikes. And once that cane has produced all the flower spikes it wants to, it will send up another brand new fresh cane, and this cane will produce as many flower spikes as it wants, and then it'll keep repeating the process. Next, we have an Oncidium Orchid. It's actually the same with the Dendrobium, how it blooms, except the Oncidium only produces 1 to 2 flower spikes. Once one pseudobulb, that's what these are called, pseudobulb. Pseudo means fake, and bulb means bulb, so it's basically a fake bulb, it's not an actual bulb. It will produce a new one. You can see how fresh this new one looks. Right in between these two conspicuous leaves here will appear 2 flower spikes that will come up together. Sometimes it will only produce 1. It depends what your orchid wants to do. Down here on the ground, I have one of my favorite plants in my collection. This is a monstera, also known as the Swiss cheese plant. It's called this because of the leaf. If you see, the leaf will actually have holes in them that are naturally occurring, and it makes it kind of look like Swiss cheese. This is what it looks like when a new leaf comes out. Moving on, I have a recovering Dendrobium Orchid. It's not doing that great. So there's not much to see here. It is trying to send out some small canes that hopefully will bring this plant to blooming health. However, I'm not sure how it's going to do, so time will tell. I'm not sure what this succulent is called. Yes, you may notice it is quite leggy. It's about 5 feet tall and shows no signs of slowing down. So I don't mind. I'm gonna let it grow like this because it seems to be able to handle its own weight. I think this is how it prefers to grow. Moving on, I have a geranium. This is an annual geranium, so we like to bring it inside. And yes, even though it is midsummer, never thought that a geranium could make such a nice houseplant. Look how much it's blooming. Look at all of these buds and all of these flowers. The next plant is a couple of aloe veras that are grown really huge. A lot of them just started out as little babies like that, little offsets, and then grew to these huge monsters. Next, we have another orchid table. There is one orchid that is in bloom for you. Sorry, there's a bit of a dead flower. Good thing we caught it right before the flower spike decided to die on us. There are 3 Phalaenopsis on this table, one there, one here, and one here. This is my oldest orchid out of all of them. This was the first orchid I ever got, and it produces these really gentle, pretty yellow flowers. The orchid back here, here's a closer look at its flowers. You notice a lot of my plants are in terracotta pots. Well, I'm trying to give all of my plants terracotta pots because not only does it look nice, but it looks nice. Here's the flowers to this Phalaenopsis right up there. And back here I have 2 diseased Oncidiums that came to me like this. I got these 2 from my cousin who found them being thrown away, and she gave them to me. They've been like this for quite a while. However, I'm trying to keep the moss nice and moist, and they are staying plump. So I think in time, I hope that they will produce some offsets. This way we can get some leaves and some energy going into them. And the last but not least plant in the sunroom is my Jade plant, also known as a crassula. This one also has really thick stems, and I believe that the key to growing crassulas and getting them to have nice thick stems and a lot of healthy looking leaves is to give them plenty of light. Moving on, we have a succulent arrangement that I made. It has 2 crassula, and both of them go by the name elephant bush. There are also 2 donkey tail succulents. Next up, I have my biggest succulent arrangement that, because of that, due to the look of things, it looks like it has seen better days. The succulents are getting a bit top heavy, so I think I need to do a bit of trimming soon. If you want to see how I made this arrangement, go check out the video in the description below. The last one in the bay window here is a small oleander tree. Oleanders are poisonous. The next plant is a simple indoor palm tree. Next, we have a big Norfolk Island pine, and they almost feel like plastic and look like plastic as well. Next, we have a couple of Pilea peperomiodas inside. It started with this one plant, and as they grow, they produce all of these little offsets in the soil. This is one here too, and I could probably put this in its own pot. Moving on, we have this gorgeous, and might I say, in bloom. Glad that we have at least 2 in bloom orchids in this video. Phalaenopsis orchid. It has this beautiful cascading flower spike with all of these very gentle looking flowers. This is actually the first time it's rebloomed for me. I've had this orchid for 8 months or so. Next up, we have a wandering Jew, also known as Dracaena variegata. I love the way that each vine produces different colored leaves. Look at this one, they're all green. And look at this one, they're white and green and pink. And then look at this one, it has a much deeper shade of pink. And yes, these are the final 2 orchids in my collection. This is a mini Phalaenopsis orchid that has only rebloomed for me once. Next, I have a quite large Phalaenopsis here that I've had for quite a while, and its last flower is falling off today. I wish you would have seen it when it was in full bloom. I made it cascading. This way, it was like a waterfall that came down. Next, we have a rather large Dracaena. I don't know what's happening here. The window's there, but it's growing this way. I'm not quite sure what's going on. Next, we have a Sago Palm that's just enjoying all of the sun here in this window. Next to my desk, I have a Venus flytrap. A couple of the traps have seen better days, but there are tons of new ones that are being produced. Moving on to the last couple of plants in my collection. This is a corn plant, also known as a Dracaena dorado. No, it doesn't produce actual corn, it's just called a corn plant because the leaves and the stripes in them resemble it. Next, we have a rather tall cactus, which I believe is a type of Euphorbia. And in this rather algae-filled vase, there are two small lucky bamboos that have seen better days. And then in these two small pots, there are Haworthias. So those were all of my houseplants. I hope you enjoyed this houseplant tour. It was definitely an overdue one. If you have any questions about any plants that you saw in today's video, please let me know in the comments, and I would be more than happy to answer. Other than that, I hope you have an excellent day and happy growing.